Good evening, members of the media and other distinguished guests. Welcome to beautiful Williamson County. Here, this past week was the home of the Williamson County Fair, and beginning this Friday, law enforcement from all over Middle Tennessee and the rest of the state will begin our Drive Sober or Get Pulled Over campaign. The purpose of this campaign is to make sure that you and your loved ones arrive safe at their destination over the upcoming Labor Day holiday season. Across the nation, over the last 3 years, over 10,000 people have lost their lives due to impaired drivers. 196 people in the state of Tennessee last year lost their lives, and there was 2,908 injury accidents. In August alone, there were 500 accidents due to alcohol impairment across the state of Tennessee. August is a time when people vacation, whenever they are doing a lot of miles on the road, and we want to ensure that everyone is safe during their vacationing, during their visiting, and whatever they choose to do during this time of the year. This campaign that encourages sober driving will start this Friday, August the 18th, and it will run through September 4th. During this time, extra efforts will be made all across the state when it comes to public information, education, and enforcement to combat irresponsible decisions made by motorists on Tennessee roadways. I'm very thankful to have all of our distinguished guests today that I will introduce as they one by one here in just a few minutes, but in our office, it takes good leadership to meet the goals and expectations that we set for ourselves to make the highways and roadways safer, not only in Middle Tennessee, but all across the state. So at this time, I would ask that our director, Vic Donahoe, would come and speak for us.
Thank you, Tony. Well, I think he read my speech instead of his speech. Seriously, thank you for being here. I want to thank Sheriff Long for being here, and Chief, and all the law enforcement partners behind me, the Highway Patrol, the DA's office, and our media partners. As Tony said, the fair just ended here, and it reminds me of a time back in 1985 when the fair ended in Macon County, Tennessee. And a mother went to the fair to pick her 2 children up. A 2-year-old, or the 11-year-old at the fair to pick her up. She carried her 2-year-old daughter with her. On their way back home, a drunk driver rounded a curve and hit the car and killed all 3 of them. And that was my aunt and 2 first cousins. That shaped my career from that point on. I immediately started with the local ambulance service and then transitioned into law enforcement. So if I can ask the public one thing, is to voluntarily comply with our drunk driving laws, impaired driving laws. If you don't have a sober ride, call a sober ride. There are so many opportunities to not get behind the wheel under the influence, more so now than 30 years ago, back in 1985. So I just asked you to voluntarily comply when it comes to driving under the influence. As Tony also mentioned, Labor Day weekend's right around the corner. Normally that's the end of summer, Memorial Day weekend. Labor Day weekend is right around the corner. Normally that ends summer. Also, it's a time for a lot of travel and one of the most deadly weekends of the year. So this Labor Day weekend, I want the public to know that we, the law enforcement community, are banding together to be visible, to enforce the driving laws that are out there, under the impaired driving laws, distracted driving laws, speeding, and seatbelt. So if you plan on driving under the influence or violating the laws, please look in your rearview mirror, because you're probably going to see one of these guys behind you. And that's going to be all across the state. And we just ask for the public's help. There's not enough law enforcement in the United States to enforce all the laws that are being broken and to save lives. But with voluntary compliance with the drivers, we can make an impact on the number that are killed on our roadways. And remember, everyone that is killed on the roadways not only impacts the family of the person that's killed, it impacts everyone involved. It impacts the officers that investigate the crash, and most importantly, it impacts the person that goes and knocks on the door of the loved one that's been killed. So I just ask for your voluntary compliance, pay attention, follow the rules, follow the laws of the state, and enjoy the upcoming holiday weekend. Thank you.
Thank you, Director. You know, this is a campaign about alcohol impairment. However, anywhere we go and have conversations about highway safety, we always come around to the subject of distracted driving. Sometimes it's hard for us to identify with those who are victims of their irresponsible behavior of distracted driving. Last week I had the opportunity to meet a lady that is here with us today named Kate Wright. Her and her family have been greatly affected by distracted driving on many occasions. Just this past week I was in Maryland and I was riding down the road and I decided I would just see how many people, I was not driving, I was in the back of the taxi there just to see how many people were driving and texting, and 3 out of 5 had phones in their hand. Just this morning, I observed something similar. So we need to hear more stories from people who survive. Unfortunately, so many times the people we hear from had a loved one that didn't survive. So I appreciate so much Kate Wright being here with us today so that we not only can spread a message about sober driving, but that we could also send a message about putting your phone down, paying attention to the roadway out of respect for your own family and for the families of others. At this time, I want to introduce Kate Wright to come and speak for us.
Okay. Thank you. I've been invited to come here today because I'm already emotional and my first sentence isn't even finished. As Tony said, you don't have to experience a fatality to be greatly harmed by distracted driving. So I'm here to share today what my family's been through, and even some people close to me who have dealt with a fatality. My first experience with this was several years ago. I worked for a company that had a pretty large sales force. And there's this young lady, it was her first week on the job. It was Friday. She had just finished her first week. And she had called one of our other associates to let her know kind of how her week went. And she finished that call, and she was dialing another number, finished that call. She was dialing her third friend, and she didn't realize the guy, she was on a single road highway, that the gentleman in front of her had stopped. That she swerved out of her way to avoid him, hit a truck head on. And her neck was broken. She was killed immediately. She was engaged to be married. She had her whole life ahead of her. And I just remember thinking, just like our director said, that it affected everybody. I even pictured like the driver she hit. He was in critical condition. He survived, but imagine what his life has been like since that accident. The innocent man who was at a complete stop waiting to turn, like how has that affected him? The law enforcement, the first responders who had to pull her body out of the car and make that phone call or knock on the door. It affected a huge community, and that was just the first incident that I saw. 3 months after that fatality, another salesperson about her same age on the weekend was texting a friend. She drove off an embankment, flipped her car, and was killed. I went to 2 funerals within a 3-month period within the same company, and our CEO got the entire company together and made everyone sign a pledge: get off your phone. Get off your phone. It is just not worth it. And this is just the beginning of my story, okay? Then, gosh, a few months after that, my kids were very young at the time. We were at a complete stop. Red light, straight ahead. We were about the 4th car in line. We'd been at a complete stop for at least 30 seconds. And 2 young men just barrel into the back of us, probably going 30 miles an hour. If one of my children had been in the 3rd row, there's no way they would have, because the damage to the car came so far up to the back of the seat. All 3 of us had to have medical attention. I went to therapy for months and months. I still have permanent damage in my neck and my arm from that accident. And I would give my right arm to prove there's no way you can barrel into the back of a car at a red light when everyone's at a complete stop unless you're distracted. There's just no way. A few months after that, we were at the same exact intersection. My husband was driving. I was in the passenger seat. The kids were with us. It's a double turn lane. And the lady on the inside ran us completely off the road into a ditch. We made our way out of the ditch. We went into the grocery store. She just happened to be pulling into the same grocery store. And my husband said, "Ma'am, do you realize you just ran my family completely off the road?" And her response was, "I had an important phone call to take." No apology issued. I mean, her phone call was more important than driving our family off the road. And then 18 months ago from now, again, I was at a red light, complete stop, had been at that stop for probably at least half a minute. There's a straightaway, no curve, no hills, no nothing, just as clear as day, and a doctor barrels into the back of us. A doctor. I've been under medical care for 18 months now. I've been to probably over 40 doctor's visits. I've had 3 needles stuck into my spine to help ease the pain. I was on anti-inflammatories for a long time. That caused me to have a stomach ulcer. I was in the emergency room twice because of all the stomach problems. They had to do a colonoscopy, an endoscopy, all kinds of gastro issues, all because of the medication related to the car accident. I now have learned that I've exhausted every treatment that they can possibly do. I have to have a spinal fusion now, and this would be deemed a minor accident. My car didn't flip over, the airbags didn't go off. I mean, this is a simple rear end, but what that accident has done to our family, and I think the nail in the coffin is when the first settlement offer came in. After everything I've been through, they offered $500, and they're not budging on that number. So my family is thousands and thousands of dollars going to be out of pocket for medical bills. But really the hardest part about this is just the things I can't do with my kids anymore. You know, my kids say, "Mom, can jump on the trampoline," and I can't. Or, "Mom, I'm going to go play soccer." I can't do that anymore. I'm going to go play tennis. I used to be able to do that, but I can't do that anymore, all because of a stupid car accident. And so I just want to reiterate that it doesn't take a fatality to turn a family upside down. You know, the emotional ache, the financial ache, it really devastates everybody. And then a few months after that accident, a friend of ours was following my husband and daughter to a tennis tournament, rear-ended them. He said he was fiddling with his GPS, so he was on his phone. We walked to school. I'm very blessed that my kids, we live walking distance from school. You would not believe, it was just like what you just said, the number, I stood there one day and it was 1 out of 3 parents leaving the school with their nose in their phones. They're driving through a school zone. Their eyes aren't even on the road. We cross a busy street. We have a crossing guard, and numerous times the crossing guard's gone chasing after parents because they come so close to running the kids over. And on and on and on. And then the straw that broke the camel's back was July 3rd of this summer. I'll never forget the date. It's my son's birthday. It was his 9th birthday. And his best friend came over to our house to open presents and to eat cupcakes. And his best friend lives walking distance from our house in the neighborhood right behind us. And it's 2 o'clock on a Monday afternoon. I went to take his friend home. And the neighborhood behind us has a long straightaway, and the other streets kind of feed off of that street. We just come onto that road, and an SUV over 500 feet comes head on right into our lane. And I got over into the grass, and it just kept coming, and it kept coming, and it kept coming. And they got close enough. It was 2 teenage boys. They both had their heads down, looking at a phone. And the passenger looked up just in time to jerk the wheel. And I literally say it is the grace of God that I'm even standing here today, because they were going 40 miles an hour. And I do not know to this day how they did not end up hitting us based on how they were coming. And that's what sealed the deal for me. I posted this to our community not Facebook, but a neighborhood website. Over 40 of my neighbors responded, having experienced similar things to me. Some others even far more serious than mine. 3 of them included fatalities. Many of them involved children. That's when I realized this is not just happening to me. This is happening to so many different people. So I started making phone calls and learning more about the laws and the legislation, and that's when I realized, wow, we're really up a big fight here. But number one, the laws have got to change. The laws have got to change, and the penalties have got to be so much stiffer. And when that happens, the enforcement, I mean, I hope and pray that you guys will just be relentless at ticketing these people. My mother shared with me last week that when I was a child and the seatbelt laws changed, my dad refused to wear a seatbelt. He was, I'm not going to wear my seatbelt. I've never worn a seatbelt. That's for everybody else, but not me. He got 3 tickets and paid over $1,000 in fines, and he finally started wearing a seatbelt. And he's been wearing a seatbelt for 20, 30, however many years that's been now. So it took the enforcement and the penalties for, in my father's case, to start wearing his seatbelt. And I feel the same is going to be with the phoning and driving. The laws have got to change, and the enforcement's got to back it up. But for everybody listening, it's up to each one of us to be responsible and have respect for everybody on the road. Put those stupid phones away. That Facebook post, that email, that text message, that whatever it is you're doing is just not worth it. You're not only influencing and hurting your own family if you're in an accident, but all the innocent people that you crash into. I feel it's going to take a big army to make change, and I want to be part of that army. So thank you guys for, you guys are the backbone of that army. Thank you for all the help that you guys do. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Kate. Unfortunately, like I said, so many times we don't get to hear that firsthand pain. We hear from the people who have lost loved ones. And so I appreciate Kate's story so much. It really reiterates what we're already working toward, and that's to get people not to text and drive and use their phone and devices and drive as well. One thing about Williamson County and Franklin, Tennessee is our great partnerships here for years. Franklin Police Department has been at the leading edge when it comes to traffic and traffic enforcement, and I'm very proud to have Rachel Gober as one of our coordinators here. And I appreciate today Chief Deb Faulkner coming and sharing a few words with us. Chief.
Thank you. I'm honored to be here today. In order for law enforcement agencies to be successful with their mission, they have to develop partnerships. And partnering with the Tennessee Highway Safety Office, the Highway Patrol, and the Williamson County Sheriff's Office is a tremendous plus for the Franklin Police Department. All of us here have a shared goal: to keep our streets safe from drivers who are under the influence or who are distracted. It's a very powerful story that she tells. The Franklin Police Department is greatly appreciative of the $30,000 grant that we've received last year from the Tennessee Highway Safety Office. This will help us combat drunk driving. We're putting that money to excellent use. And part of the ways we're doing that is by community awareness, constantly raising the bar on that, and pushing out a very aggressive enforcement effort. A person who makes the decision to drink and then get in behind the wheel of a vehicle puts himself in serious jeopardy and puts the public in harm's way. Franklin police officers will not stand for it, so we echo what the Highway Patrol is saying. Drive sober, or you'll get pulled over. Don't drink and drive, or you'll meet one of these officers behind me. And I can tell you, as far as the Franklin Police Department, you will go to jail.
Thank you, Chief Faulkner, so much. Also, another long-standing relationship over here is with the Williamson County Sheriff's Office. Sheriff Long and his staff are always very supportive. Wherever we are, whatever we do, you can always depend on Franklin Police Department and the Williamson County Sheriff's Department to be there to help the Tennessee Highway Safety Office, as well as other agencies all across the state. Many times we do enforcement activities and other activities around the state, and they're always there to support us. And so at this time, I would like to hear from, for us to hear from Sheriff Jeff Long with the Williamson County Sheriff's Office. Thank you, Sheriff.
Thank you, Tony. And Kate, let me say a telling story, very telling. Talking to you on the phone the other day, it made us all reassess and commit our resources to the distracted driving violations across our area. I want to thank Chief Faulkner for the cooperation we always get from the Franklin Police Department and also the Tennessee Highway Patrol. We have a great working relationship in this county, and it's to the benefit of all of our citizens that we all cooperate and work together. As previously said, the Labor Day campaign is designed to reduce impaired driving injuries, fatalities, and associated economic losses. The intervention targets all drivers who are impaired due to the consumption of alcoholic beverages and substances and distracted driving. Impaired driving and impaired related crashes constitute one of the nation's leading health problems. These events result in more deaths each year than do total homicides, and alcohol is a factor in 35% of all crashes in the United States. Over the Labor Day season, Williamson County law enforcement will step up our effort of the DUI laws. We'll conduct different sobriety checkpoints and roadside safety points, conduct saturations by deputies in areas of concentration, and this will be in addition to our regular traffic unit. Our patrol assignments will be looking for impaired and distracted drivers. We recognize that sobriety checkpoints are highly visible and they're effective tools in the battle against impaired driving. These sobriety checkpoints and saturations are funded by grant monies from the Governor's Highway Safety Office. Nowadays, there is no really good reason why anyone should be driving while impaired. With a designated driver, sober ride programs, taxi cabs, friends, families, and other methods, people should call someone other than making the choice to drive while impaired and risking lives. Pre-plan by putting a telephone number of someone to call into your cell phone prior to drinking and driving. We all standing here today wish everyone a happy and safe Labor Day holiday. Thank you.
Thank you, Sheriff. And the Sheriff mentioned a very important statistic there that I want to mention, and that is nationwide the number of alcohol-impaired fatalities. In the state of Tennessee, they are well under the national average. And I give that credit to strong partnerships all across the state when it comes to highway safety goals. Good partnerships occur when what's important to one is important to all. And Lieutenant Miller and I with the Tennessee Highway Patrol were discussing that outside just before this press event. And I can honestly say that the Tennessee Highway Patrol makes its goals coincide with everybody else's. And I appreciate their partnership so much. And at this time, I want to introduce Lieutenant Bill Miller with the Tennessee Highway Patrol.
Thank you, Tom. Thank you, everyone. And let me say, Kate, that was a tremendously powerful story, and it took me a whole nother direction of where I was going to talk at today. We hear about driving under the influence of alcohol or drugs, and we automatically assign a fatality crash to that. That does occur, and that's the very sad nature of that. But so many times there are people who are injured and seriously injured and have to live with that injury for the rest of their life, all because someone made the decision to drive impaired. That is something that the Tennessee Highway Patrol will not tolerate. That is an impaired driver. Every day is drive sober or get pulled over with the Tennessee Highway Patrol. That is our commitment to this state and to everyone who visits this state and lives in this state. If you drive impaired in the state of Tennessee, you need to look in your rearview mirror, as it was stated, because there will be a trooper, there will be a law enforcement officer, there will be one of us looking for you to pull you over. That is our commitment to you. In 2016, year to date, the Tennessee Highway Patrol made 5,336 DUI arrests in this year-to-date time period. That number decreased slightly in 2017. Year-to-date, we have made 4,865. That's a decrease of 8.5%. Before you get alarmed by that decrease, I want to give you another stat that is very positive. In 2016 year-to-date, the alcohol impaired fatalities in Tennessee averaged around 20%. In 2017 year-to-date, impaired fatalities have decreased to 17.5. That's not by an accident. That is by commitment by every man and woman that wears the uniform of law enforcement and is committed to the detection and enforcement of impaired drivers. That decrease is still not enough. 17.5% of the state's fatalities are impaired related. We need everyone in uniform and everyone who does not wear a uniform to partner with law enforcement and make that commitment to not drive impaired. 2017, it is so simple to find an alternate means of travel. Designate a driver. Have a sober friend come along is still one of the best things that you can do. Designate a driver, call an alternate ride. There's still a lot to do, and we ask and we implore that you please help us to reduce this tremendously tragic occurrence that's happening daily on Tennessee streets. Help us to reduce impaired driving. Distracted driving is equally just as dangerous in today's modern world. Everyone wants to be instantly connected to the next social media tweet or post or email. Trust me, it can wait. Please put your phone down and simply drive. In the words of our friends with Tennessee Highway Safety Office, we want you to arrive alive. Thank you.
Thank you, Lieutenant Miller. And in closing, we've talked about Williamson County Sheriff's Office, Franklin Police Department, Tennessee Highway Patrol, and we also have other agencies standing here behind me. I won't mention them all because I'll leave somebody out, but they know who they are. They represent all of Middle Tennessee, and I appreciate so much their willingness. Many of them will take time out of their Labor Day weekend to see that you arrive alive for your family over the Labor Day weekend. So I appreciate the boots on the ground. I appreciate all of our special guests here today. And remember, drive sober or get pulled over. Don't drive distracted. Put your phone down. Pay attention to the roadway in front of you. Thank you, and that concludes our press time today. Thank you.